More in this Sunday Morning Futures exclusive is the man himself, Texas Senator Ted Cruz. Senator, good to see you. Thank you so much for being here. Confirm that. Have you gotten no money from Mitch McConnell and his super PAC?
Well, good morning, Maria. No, not a penny. We are on our own, and we are in the middle of the single most expensive Senate race in the entire country. Chuck Schumer has been explicit. I'm his #1 target. And Chuck Schumer and George Soros, they are spending more than $100 million trying to beat me. We have seen more than a dozen polls in the last month that show this as a 1-point race or a 2-point race or a 3-point race. And the Washington swamp doesn't support me. And so what I'm supported by is millions of patriots across Texas, across the country, who go to our website, tedcruz.org, tedcruz.org, and who make contributions of $10, $25, $50, $100. That's how we're fighting back against Chuck Schumer and George Soros's wave of cash. So I would encourage your viewers, please, we're 2 days away. Please go to tedcruz.org right now and give what you can so we can fight back. We're going to win in Texas in 2 days, but we need your help to win. And if you're in Texas on Election Day, please, 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 come out and vote. Bring your friends, bring your family, bring anyone you can. This is all about turnout at this stage.
Senator, if you win and the GOP has control of the Senate, who will you support for Senate leadership when Mitch McConnell leaves?
Well, listen, I'm going to listen to all of the candidates. The election is scheduled for next week. I want to see a majority leader who changes how the Senate operates, who democratizes it more. And in particular, what I've told all three of the candidates is I want the next leader to agree to a full and open amendment process so that when a budget gets on the floor, you're not given 2,000 pages that you can't change at all, but each senator has the ability to say, no, take that garbage out, take that garbage out. That would fundamentally change how the Senate operates. At this point, I'm waiting to see if any of the leader candidates will make a commitment to allow those full and open amendments.
Do you think that Florida Senator Rick Scott has a shot to become leader?
Of course. I think all three of them do. Rick is a good friend. John Cornyn is a good friend. John Thune is a good friend. I'm hoping we have something that happens rarely in the Senate, a real, robust conversation. And I want to hear from each of them directly. What's your vision for how this place operates? Mitch McConnell, I've had disagreements with how he has operated for a long time. He's basically behaved as a one-man dictator. I don't think we want a leader who does that. I think when we win in November, and I believe we're going to see a really good election, I think Trump's going to win. I think we're going to win a Republican Senate and a Republican House. When that happens, we've got enormous work to do. When that happens, here's what's going to happen. Number one, we will secure the border. We're going to cut taxes and extend the tax cuts. We're going to end the regulatory assault on small businesses and oil and gas. And we're going to end the wars abroad. Israel will defeat Hamas. To do that is going to take Republicans standing together, being focused at the task on hand, and having an effective leader is a very important part of that.
Kamala Harris has had two completely different messages when it comes to the war on Israel. When you look at what she says in Pennsylvania, where she appears to be talking to Jewish voters, where she says, I'm going to make sure that Israel has the right to defend itself. And that compares completely the opposite to what she's telling voters in Michigan when she says, well, I am going to ensure that there's a ceasefire and the hostages for Gaza are released. It's a completely different message on Israel. What do you believe Kamala Harris's leadership will look like on Israel?
Well, Kamala Harris is lying to people in Pennsylvania. And we know that because she's not just some random person off the street. She's been the sitting vice president for 4 years. And Kamala Harris and Joe Biden have been the single most anti-Israel administration this country has ever seen. You know, it was interesting when she did a 60 Minutes interview, she was asked, who's the biggest enemy America has? And she came back with Iran, which is a very good answer. And bizarrely enough, 60 Minutes didn't follow with the obvious response of, well, then why have you given them $100 billion? Why do you allow them today to sell 2 million barrels a day of oil? Why are you funding Iran? And Iran provides 90% of the funding to Hamas and 90% of the funding to Hezbollah. They didn't follow up with that question, but her record has been clear that if, God forbid, Kamala Harris is president, I think it gets much, much worse for Israel. Joe Biden's a puppet. He doesn't know what's going on. He's barely aware of what's surrounding him. Kamala Harris is a true believer. I've served with her since the day she was elected to the Senate. She is hard left. Her voting record is to the left of Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. That ain't easy. I served with Bernie and Elizabeth. There's not much room to their left. And Kamala Harris's voting record is virtually identical to my opponent, Colin Allred. Colin Allred is Kamala Harris. They are both hard left, open border, anti-Israel radicals who are desperately trying to cover up their record. They're hiding in Joe Biden's basement together, and they're counting on millions and millions of dollars from George Soros to try to convince the American people their voting record is different than it was.
Well,
by the way, Kamala's message in Pennsylvania, she actually meant it. You ought to ask yourself, why didn't she pick Josh Shapiro as her VP? And the answer is, in today's Democrat Party, they could not stomach a candidate who was Jewish. Shapiro might well have won the state of Pennsylvania for her, but the pro-Hamas wing of the Democrat Party could not imagine, could not tolerate such a thing.
Wow. All right, Senator, we'll be watching your work and certainly this race. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thanks, Maria.
All right.